All right, let's get all of our Facebook friends, family, folks back up in the chat before it's officially time to start the show. All right, 1, 2, and 3. There we go. Welcome in, welcome in. It is Tuesday night, the 23rd of January, and it's time for an episode of Building the Broncos. I am Nick Kendell, and joined by, as always on these Tuesday evening shows, Carl Dumler. Carl, how you doing? I know it's been kind of a crazy week for both of us. Excited for some normalcy and scheduled routine fun with Building the Broncos Tuesday nights.
Yeah, it has. It's been kind of a crazy week. I'm playing the single parent this week. My wife has appointments in Topeka she's, big time kind of person. So thankfully grandparents are watching the kids tonight for me so I can come here for this show. But it has. It's been kind of crazy. I took a little tumble this morning even.
Oh, no.
We had a little bit of ice on the road, and I had coffee pot in one hand, phone in the other, listening to something with sports. And all of a sudden, zoop, both of them went flying in the air. Thankfully, no coffee came down on me, and only a bruised caboose to really remind me of my stupidity of not paying attention to what I was doing. So, but no, good to be here tonight. Good to get some chance to talk football with you. And I know, your life has been crazy too. And oh man, that's the way of life, especially once you get kids, man.
Well, I'm figuring that out. Don't know what my hiking adventures look like this summer, but just trying to survive day by day right now. Kind of like the Broncos heading in the off season, and we are very much in the mix of draft season now. We had Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, of course, Dane Brugler. Now the draft godfather himself, Mel Kiper's mock draft 1.0 come out, and we're going to get into that today, as well as all of your comments. Hopefully keep it a nice 40 minutes so we can get on out of here and get back to helping with a baby. But appreciate everyone coming. Let's say hello to some people coming in. Jeff W says there is no quarterback worth reaching for. If they are staying put at 12, they need best player available. This team is talent poor, and it has to start with the draft this year. Our cap is FUBAR. For those at home, that's effed up beyond all reason. So military term for sure. But Jeff, this is an interesting comment. I personally am with you right now in terms of my analysis. There definitely are quarterbacks worth taking at 12. I think all three of them are going to be gone by pick 3, maybe pick 4 or 5 at the earliest. We'll see what happens with Marvin Harrison Jr. But that's tough. And the next 3 available would be Bo Nix out of Oregon, Michael Penix out of Washington, and then J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan. Right now, I would not feel comfortable taking any of them at 12. But that said, I've said on here a few times, each of them do things well enough in their game that if the intangibles are off the charts, if the intelligence is off the charts, if like Sean Payton really, not to use a millennial term, but like vibes with them, the personalities match and like, okay, this is a person that I want to work with. Okay. You have to understand that as Payton taking that quarterback at 12, you're married at that point to that quarterback. You got 2 years to show progress, and not to put a timer on Sean Payton or anything here, but once you take that first round quarterback, tick-tock, the clock starts. So do you want to have that with the pressure of the quarterback at 12, especially when that's your only pick in the top 75? You don't have really other avenues to add talent out from outside who's already on this roster right now, given your lack of draft picks and salary cap. It's tough. It's tough. But if there's a quarterback you like, don't be afraid to take the shot. I just am not there with any of these guys. Well, quarterback 4, 5, or 6 currently.
Yeah, well, we had this debate when George Payton was going into his first draft of did he want to marry himself to a quarterback where his entire career was hitched on, does this guy hit? And I mean, we were all for I think most of us were for pulling the trigger on Justin Fields, taking that chance. But I kind of get it for him of maybe leaning in a little bit more to the safe pick of taking PS2 for the Broncos. I get it a little bit. I mean, I still don't think you can operate in a place of fear of failure to really succeed in this place. But I get it a little bit. Now for Sean Payton, I don't think he's that kind of guy. Like if he likes a guy, he's just going to say, I'm going to take him. I don't care. I don't care if anybody's going to say that this was a horrible pick. If this is my guy, I'm going to go take him. And I do think some of the things that he's going to be looking for, it's going to be a little tougher to tell on some of it when you're looking at the tape. His supreme intelligence is huge. You think about Drew Brees, very, very highly intelligent quarterback, could actually take in the entire playbook from Sean Payton. That was something we didn't get to see this last year with Russell Wilson. They were maybe operating with 5-10% of the playbook being available. And that wasn't all just intelligence. It was some just Russell Wilson's ability as a quarterback, or lack of ability, I guess you could say. And so again, if he finds a quarterback he does feel like can handle his playbook, handle all that he puts into the lap of the quarterback, then yeah, that raises that quarterback up in value, even if they don't have the greatest arm talent in the world.
Yeah, and again, all these guys do things pretty well that would make them enticing. Bo Nix is a combination of arm talent and athleticism in a pretty good, solid frame. I like a little bit of thickness in my quarterbacks, and Bo Nix does bring that to the table. The offense is a little bit hard to evaluate there at Oregon, but he does some middle of the field, tight window throws there with anticipation every once in a while. Penix, the outside the numbers, down the field stuff when he can hit his drop back, as good as anyone in the class, but when forced off the spot, not great getting those layered throws where you have to kind of fit it over the middle between the safeties and the linebackers. Really struggles with that, but more so I think he's just a little stiff when off the spot, and I don't think he's got that ability to throw off of different platforms very often. Now, there were a few plays in the semifinal game where he showed the ability to get off that first spot and then make a throw, reset, and make an accurate throw. Not really the case for most of his tape this season, but he did show it, so that's important. Maybe that's still there. Still missing some throws here or there, and being in second year, third year in that system out there under Grubbs as well. And DeBoer was at some concerns there. And then JJ McCarthy, really was never put in terms of in-game adversity. Obviously, Michigan dealt with adversity that maybe they brought on themselves with the whole Spygate, whatever, got the guys taping signals. That's self-made adversity, but in games, not really so much. They were played with a lead pretty much the entire season. They were able to always lean on the run game, and when the going got tough, they took the ball away from McCarthy more than not. Now, granted, he has some of the best 3rd and 7+ yard stats in the game out of all the top quarterbacks this year. He has way more under center true drop back reps than anyone else as well, and he did pretty well when under pressure. So there's interesting stuff with all three of these guys. There's enough to be excited about. Broncos are going to definitely do the work, and we'll see how it plays out. Yeah. Michael Ronquillo coming in here saying, "Good evening, Nick and Carl. I'm building the Broncos. Go Broncos. Go Michael. Always appreciate you coming in. Hope you're doing well. Hope you have better weather out there. I'm not a desert guy so much, Carl, but when it comes to January, February, I'm like, maybe a little bit of desert heat would do me some well."
Yeah, I miss the nice warm temperatures. We haven't been above 30 in probably 2.5 weeks now, which is a long streak here in Kansas. We're one of those, it can be 60 one day, -10 the next day kind of places. So yeah, I wouldn't mind a little bit of consistent dry heat right now. I would love to be out at the golf course. Man, I miss golfing right now. But something that I don't have to miss is Little Caesars Pizza. It's the official pizza sponsor of the NFL. And I encourage each and every one of you to make it part of your game day. Guys, pretty much every Sunday, I really don't want to cook after work. Want to come home, watch some football, sit down. And one of the best things you can do is go order yourself a pizza. You can order online during our Pizza pregame, 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, plus all day Sunday, and get ready for some football and fun.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the stuffed crazy bread. Some of my first memories is, stuffed pizza growing up with my dad. Now that Little Caesars is on that wagon as well with the seasoning they have on the crust. So good. Always a winning combination. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with the convenient delivery in our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the upcoming games this weekend. Let's say hello to some more folks in here, Carl. We all got Mike S. in here saying, "What's up, Carl, Nick, Scott, and Dylan? Hope you're doing well." He also says I'd take best player available. I know that always grinds Scott's gear because that is very subjective. Teams are always going to take, in their opinion, the best guy. Well, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they go into drafts where it's we have to take this position, and it almost always fails. Yeah. But more or less, teams take best player available on their board based on how they have it set up.
Yeah, you'll never hear them afterwards say, "Yeah, this guy wasn't our top guy. We just had to have this position." Rarely would you ever hear them say that. I can't remember how many times John Elway, we didn't think this guy would be there. I can't believe he fell that far. That's a usual common saying among GMs and coaches. And, you think about, they had a little bit of that insider with when Hackett was here and some of the picks, they go to the war room and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, that guy, we got him, we got our guy," and I'm just like, okay, if that's really what you think, I'm not sure I'm quite there with you on that. So you're right, it's very subjective, and every team has their different ideas of what kind of players they're looking for, what players fit their schemes. This is why the teams that can stay consistent coaching wise, a lot of times they can build a good roster, because sometimes when you switch coaches, you switch up schemes. Now, you're still doing a lot of the same stuff, but there's still some specialty things of, are you going to play a lot more press man? Are you going to play some more off zone, cover 3, cover 2, cover 4? And some guys are better at certain things than others. So yeah, it is. It's a very subjective game when it comes to who's going to be truly the best player.
Yeah, without a doubt. And hopefully in hindsight, you can say you did take best player available. David also says, I'm curious why the Broncos can't use 6 draft picks on the offense since their offense is so god-awful. Probably because 4 of your 6 picks aren't really valuable, being outside of the top 100. So you really just, trying to find special teams. If those guys even make the roster, I don't even care what position they play. That's a hit. When you get beyond, maybe that round 4 pick can be okay. But other than that, not so much. Not a high probability of hitting. And on the offense, while you do have avenues of playing time, the offensive line's probably pretty set outside of center next season, depending on what happens with Garrett Bowles. We'll see. Wide receiver could definitely bring in somebody. I'd be shocked if they didn't bring in somebody via cheap free agent route and the draft. But yeah, the offense is where I would be leaning as well. You're building that infrastructure on the quarterback. But at the same time, if this is a team that is gearing up to win next season, and by all indication they are, they got to figure out something on the defensive line. They were one of the worst singular defensive fronts in football this season, from PFF's grades, from ESPN's pass rush and run stuff win rate. They had to blitz pretty much every single first and second down. I think top 3 blitz rate team in football on the first and second down, because they could not get home with 4. Also struggled stopping the run. So you have holes on this team, and it's pretty hard to do much of anything in football when you're on the defensive side, if your defensive front is struggling as much as the Broncos did this season. Lawrence Rivera coming in here as well, saying, "What's up, guys? What's going on?" We're talking a little Mel Kiper draft and getting into a little bit of draft stuff here. We're talking about the defensive front and pass rush. Might be a theme here going on. We also got Phil McLaughlin saying, "Good evening, Carl and Nick. Any thoughts on a sleeper like Pratt from Tulane?" I think Pratt is very much not a sleeper in terms of the Broncos. I don't think he'd be worth a first-round pick, but in terms of somebody who can come in and learn the offense and execute, I think he could be a solid option for the Broncos day 2 if he's there, and excited to see what he looks like next to some supremely gifted arms down in Mobile in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I'm jealous for those that get to go down there and watch these guys all week. I'm sure you'll be checking in every once in a while with usually NFL.com puts out highlight tapes, and I think sometimes they even do live parts of the practices. So definitely will be tuned in for that, because it's a great quarterback group. A lot of guys that should interest the Broncos, and Pratt is one of those. I know he has a lot of connections to Sean Payton. Some of the coaching staff there in Tulane worked with Sean Payton at one time. So I'm sure he has as much inside information on this guy as any team out there. And talking about team guy right here, Naj coming in, turning it red at 99.99, saying, "Hey, brothers, still disgusted by the season, so haven't checked in a while. Nick, bro, this one is for your little one. As for the team, absolutely no idea where we go from here, and not sure we have the coaching staff to get us back to winning, but staying positive." Thanks, Naj. That's awesome. And appreciate you tuning back in. I know I was thinking of you when the season was really kind of winding down, and those of us that are just very, very passionate about this, when we see that things aren't going the direction we were hoping, it hits. It's hard. I always have a rule that after the Broncos lose, I take at least one day where I don't get on Twitter. I don't even check in with our Facebook chat as much, just because I just need a day, just to kind of let it all simmer in and just not have all the negativity around me with it. So I'm glad you're staying positive, Naj, because I got to say, it's infectious. When we were at the meet and greet, man, you had me fired up big time thinking about the Broncos and what they could be doing, even though they were 1-5 at that time. Naj, you had me excited.
Yeah, thank you so much, Naj. Gosh, super generous of you. Little guys here, Mills. I'm excited to have him showcase him at some point, right? Maybe the Broncos quarterback draft pick in 2045, but a ways off. But appreciate you so much. As far as the comment about the absolutely no idea where we go from here, hopefully up. There are some advanced analytics and indicators that the Broncos actually played above their talent level this season. Pretty lucky in terms of the Pythagorean wins, the turnover differential based on fumbles, not super sustainable. And they were one of the least injured teams in football this season as well, losing starters. So those are all things that are likely to regress to the mean. You also don't have many avenues to add talent. So I'm with you. I don't know where they go from here. I think, unfortunately, where I sit right now looking at this team and just, taking it in and watching the difference of play that is these playoff teams versus what we watched with the Broncos this year, I'm like, man, Broncos probably next year closer to picking top 10 than making the playoffs unless something drastically changes. But the comment I'm not sure about here is that the coaching staff. I think coaching staff's fine. I think coaching staff's good. I think it's more of a talent issue. I said it at the beginning with Vance Joseph early on. Guys missing tackles, missing run fits, and the defensive line getting blown up. I don't know what you're supposed to do scheme-wise to overcome, the talent getting beat that bad. Now we might have quarterback questions, wide receiver talent. Who knows what's up next year? I think it's much more of a talent issue in Denver than it is a coaching issue right now.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, you get the quarterback position figured out. It kind of makes everything else a little easier building that roster. But we got George Fox asking a question about quarterbacks, saying, in your opinion, do we get a quarterback in the second or third round? As I feel we don't in round one. I mean, this is hard because if you don't feel like they're worth pick number 12, are they really worth taking later? I mean, I know you should take a quarterback, and there's still times where obviously 3rd round pick Russell Wilson works out, 6th round pick Tom Brady works out, 7th round pick Brock Purdy works out. But I don't know. I mean, if the Broncos trade back and let's say Bo Nix falls to the end of round 1, beginning of round 2, I would be okay taking that chance. Just, I mean, if you've got some more draft picks that you can work with, you got a few more darts to throw at the board, I think you can take that kind of chance and just see if maybe Sean Payton can turn this guy into something. He can really maximize that talent because he is one of the few guys I think can come in day one and be an impact quarterback. Like that, there's not JJ McCarthy. Part of why I have him lower than a lot of these other guys is I feel like his path to becoming the starter is going to take longer. Now he might have the higher ceiling of all the second tier quarterbacks in this draft because, he's only 20 years old right now, going to turn 21 right around the draft. But again, there's just so many things from his game that I have a lot more questions about. And I think he's going to need a year or two sitting on the bench before you put him out there and expect good results.
I agree with you to a certain extent, but we kind of saw a bumper rails offense this year, especially when the Broncos, after the losing streak early on stopped and they started to play much more ball control offense, do not turn over, do not sack. I didn't feel like what they were asking of Russell Wilson was dramatically different from what we saw the Harbaugh McCarthy combo asked in Michigan. Now, granted, the NFL level, it's totally different. I don't want to minimize that, obviously. But I think that you could come in and run a guardrail bumper style offense where you're going to be very rush oriented, under center, play action, and just try to minimize sacks and mistakes. It's not going to be explosive, but I think that is a pathway to the field early on. And again, coming back to the quarterbacks full circle, it's going to come down to the whiteboard session, the intelligence, the intangibles. And at that point, they'll get those guys out there when they feel they're ready. As far as taking a quarterback in the second, third round, if they don't round one, certainly possible. I think it's as possible the Broncos kick the can on quarterback entirely this cycle and go from the scrap heap at the position as well. Scrap heap is not where anybody wants to be, of course, but again, it's a team that's lacking resources right now, and maybe you go Jarrett Stidham and set yourself up better for 2025. We'll see. Many different avenues. The team is probably not going to be great next season, regardless of quarterback or not in the first round. So we'll see. Who knows? David McElrath saying, good evening, Broncos country. Nick, Carl, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. Good to see you, David. Hope I know you had some health stuff going on earlier this month, so hopefully you're doing all well now. We got Moose Bear 87 said, "Sup Broncos country." Usually listen after the fact, but had a question for y'all. Seen some mocks where Jaden Daniels drops to pick 7 or 9. If that happens, do we trade up to get him? If the Broncos evaluate him and like him, and he sits there at pick 7 or 9, I think absolutely they're looking to trade up. Now, we just talked about how they're lacking capital and everything, and by doing that, it's definitely we are all in on this, and you're going to hurt yourself even further if you miss. But if he's your guy, and let's say it only costs only. But let's say it only costs your first round pick in 2025, as well as 12 overall. Now that's risky because what we just saw with the Carolina Panthers doing so, that first round pick in the future is always a massive lottery ticket. But if he's your guy and you're in on Sean Payton in the short window, then absolutely, I think you make that move and go up and get him. Is he going to drop to pick 7 or 9? I don't think so. But definitely interesting for sure. I think the real question for me is, are the Patriots going to sit there and take a quarterback for sure at 3? Jared Mayo's got a big, long leash, defensive guy through and through. Are they a team that maybe, would like to, if the quarterback they don't like, let's say the Commanders take Jaden Daniels at 3 and the Commanders take Jaden Daniels at 2 and Drake May's there at 3. Now we're interested. Now, or Jaden Daniels fall at 3. Maybe we're interested there. But as far as 7 or 9, I'm not sure that is likely to happen with any of the top 3 quarterbacks.
All right. Well, something that is likely to happen is you guys getting the chance to tune in for HelloFresh. You can get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit.
Yeah, absolutely love HelloFresh. Just got some delivered yesterday. We got the shepherd's pie in. That's one of my favorites. And it's a time of year where something like shepherd's pie is great and everyone's looking to revamp their eating habits. So look to HelloFresh's wholesome, health-forward options like the over 30 calorie smart and protein smart recipes each and every week. They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and HelloFresh definitely agrees. In fact, they're giving all subscribers free breakfasts for life. That means you'll enjoy a totally free breakfast item with every single HelloFresh delivery. Now that's worth waking up for.
Like I said earlier, I am home with my kids. My wife's off doing a work thing. It is such a great thing to have in the kitchen where I can just pull this out, put this thing together. It's nice and easy. It is great for the whole family. So it's time to go with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Go to HelloFresh.com/HuddleFree and use Huddle Free for free breakfast for life. 1 breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/HuddleFree with code HuddleFree.
Yeah, let's say hello to some more people in here. And obviously, shout out to HelloFresh and, of course, Little Caesars supporting the pod, just like you guys are. Like Phil McLaughlin says, you guys, how do you think we can pick up more picks? You trade back from 12? Obviously, that's an option. And also, you're looking to maybe trade some guys. I know that there's been a lot of speculation that the Broncos might be trading Cortland Sutton. I know Mike Kliss was speculating about that earlier. There could be a trade market for a Justin Simmons or a Garrett Bowles as well. Those guys that are over 30 years old, probably, what is the long-term perspective of them in Denver? Are you within your window with them, or are you looking to rebuild and, restack some of those contracts and get younger and more cost-controlled? And then also you have, of course, Patrick Surtain. I don't think you're looking to trade him right now, but let's say the Broncos absolutely flub next season. They're picking top 5, and Surtain's about to get paid a huge contract, and cornerbacks historically, after their first 6 or 7 years, fall off a cliff, and you'd already be 4 years down the hole in Surtain. Maybe that's something to think about. It's a year off still, and I'm not advocating for that, but unfortunately, it's a possible reality with where this team is at if things go poorly. Hopefully they don't, but nobody's bigger than the team for sure. So those are the avenues to pick up more picks. The most likely one is trading back from 12, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's your easiest path because some team's going to be wanting to trade up for some kind of player. I think of what year was it? I guess it would have been 2020 draft where Broncos trade back from 10 to 20, or was that 2019? 2019, yeah. And again, somebody, you just got to find one trading partner that wants to get up there and get an extra second and third round pick or something like that. So I don't think it's too difficult. Like I said, there's a few players that do have some decent value for the Broncos. Yes, you are losing talent. That's how you get draft picks, unfortunately. You're going to have to give away somebody that actually has real value. And some of these players, I know we're attached to them. Like, I love Justin Simmons. I love Justin Simmons, the player, the person in the locker room, what he does for that community, all of those kind of things. But like I said, he's not bigger than the team. If him getting traded helps the team in the long run, where you're getting his contract out of there, getting some, like I said, some draft picks back for him, sometimes that's the path you got to take. You think of, I know some people are going to maybe push back against this because it really didn't help the Broncos as much as we'd like, but Von Miller getting traded for a second and third round pick. I still say that was a good decision by the Broncos. They weren't going to continue long term with him. They saw that they needed a lot more pieces to make this team work. And they had a team that was going, hey, we're just that one piece away maybe from winning a Super Bowl. And they actually did. They went out and won a Super Bowl, which stunk because that pushed that pick further back. And you still got to make the picks work. That's always the big thing. If you get nothing in return in the picks, it kind of takes that out. But it's still a good process. Sometimes the results aren't always good, but the process is good.
Yeah. Gave you a chance to take that shot, and it was a totally different situation with the young talent, all these guys under control, and all the excess draft capital the Broncos had, and they made that shot. Bet wrong on Russell Wilson, but hopefully they can build themselves up to get that shot again. We got Daniel Berry coming in here saying, yo, good to see you. We got Barry Hicks asking about J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. If they like him, he's talented, so that's one to keep an eye on. I wouldn't feel comfortable with it right now, but I'm not dealing with all the information. I can only go based on the tape available. Michael Rome coming in saying any defensive lineman predicted to fall into that 12 pick. D-line is a huge need as well. If you're talking about edge rushers in terms of defensive line as well, you have three guys I think that could be in the conversation there. One of them, Mel Kiper, suggested for the Broncos here in his first mock draft, and Leatu Latu, edge rusher from UCLA, really refined pass rusher, great hands, just super developed. You also have Jared Verse from Florida State and Dallas Turner from Alabama. If you're talking about the guys like defensive tackle, I think Byron Murphy from Texas, as well as, of course, Johnny Newton from Illinois are options as well from the interior defensive line. I wouldn't feel comfortable taking either of those guys at 12, but the edge rushers for sure, any of those guys could be available.
Yeah, Latu is the one that we kind of put as our headline for this podcast. And I mean, if you're talking about a guy that has been the most productive edge rusher in college football for the last 2 years, I think he finished with the number 1 PFF grade by an edge rusher this past season and number 9 last year. He actually had more pressures as a pass rusher last year than he did this year. He had 65 in 2022, 63 this year. I mean, a guy that gets after the quarterback, like you said, he's more refined than a lot of guys coming out of college. Like, you can find great athletes and then you can coach them up. He knows the things that you teach, the hand movement, the setting up moves, counter moves. He's got about 3 or 4 different pass rush moves that he likes to bring into different games. Usually most guys have like one great move and they just use it over and over and over again. And then you're kind of like, okay, if they could develop just a secondary move, they could be something. And then they get to the NFL and sometimes they struggle with that. He has that. So it's one of those things where I feel like he could probably win Rookie of the Year if you draft him, but I'm not sure that he has the highest ceiling of any of the edge rushers in this class. I think there's some limitations compared to like a Dallas Turner. That guy's going to be an athletic freak. He's going to test off the charts. Chop Robinson, he's going to test off the charts. They have a little bit more refining to get to the place that you want them to be for the NFL.
And the big kicker with Leatu Latu is that he was a part of that unbelievable recruiting class. I think one of Peterson's last classes there for the Washington Huskies up here in Seattle. And they brought him into Washington, and he was medically retired by the staff there. And he transferred out to UCLA. The UCLA doctors passed him, and he played the last couple of years as a Bruin down there for Chip Kelly and the Bruins. So really good down there. I will say I kind of agree with you. Leatu Latu, his best hands in the class, not the most powerful, but the best, hand refinement, the moves that he has, the way he can set guys up. I think he's really much better that second step. The first step is not super duper explosive. And that third one where he closes, can bend on guys and closes, not great. But that second one where he's getting contact with the offensive tackle, sometimes I don't know if it's just Pac-12 offensive tackles are that bad, but like it feels like these guys can't even get hands on him because he's set them up so well. It's just like, whoa, what, that rep looked really weird. What the heck happened? Well, guy lunged and misplaced his hands, and there goes Latu around him. So really effective in that regard. I do wonder, you mentioned it earlier, how is he going to test? I think he's a little bit not as powerful and raw power as a Jared Verse, and definitely not as explosive and bendy and closing space as Dallas Turner or Chop Robinson, but just a really high floor player as long as the medical is clear. So let's see what Mel Kiper said about the Broncos pick, 12 overall, about taking Latu. And I always appreciate Mel Kiper, not just like one sentence here, but a couple of good bits here. He says that I love Latu's ability to bend the edge and get after quarterbacks. He's a toolsy pass rusher, has a variety of moves, and always has a plan of attack. He ranked second in the FBS in pressures and pressure rate this past season, and he ranked first in the same category in 2022. And did I mention he had 23.5 sacks in that time frame? Those are two seasons of phenomenal production. The questions with Latu will come at the NFL Combine in a few weeks, as he medically retired from football because of a neck injury when he was at Washington in 2021. He was cleared to play for the Bruins, but what will his medical checkups show? For Denver, adding Latu would be a boost to the pass rush that was just okay this past season. Worse than okay, Mel, but appreciate it. The Broncos tied for 21st in 42 sacks, but overall they ranked 30th in yards per play allowed and 32nd in yards per carry allowed. Latu has the potential to become a 10 sack per season defender. So Latu, talented guy, really refined. I think very high floor as long as the medicals are okay. I don't think he's ever going to be a perennial Pro Bowler, but I think he can be definitely a guy who comes in 8 to 10 sacks in a high year and could really change this defensive front around that's lacking go-to guys on the edge spot.
Well, and he's got the size to hold up in the run game. I think he needs some work. There's a few times that you watch, he guesses where the run play is trying to go, or he's trying to make a big play and he'll leave a big gap open. Bradley Chubb did that too. I remember his rookie year. It drove me nuts. They could really entice him to take an inside lane and then block him to the inside and run to the outside. Sometimes Latu will do that because he's trying to, like I said, he's trying to make that big play. And I'm not completely against that all the time. There's just times you got to be a little bit more disciplined, especially when it comes to the NFL, because teams will look at that and go, okay, we see that you do this on a regular basis. We're going to test this and see if we can get you to make a bad mistake here. He's not my number one pass rusher in this class by any means, but if the Broncos fall in love with him, I get it. Like I said, of all the top defensive players in this draft, he's going to be up there when you're just looking at pure tape. He's going to be up there. You're just going to be amazed at some of the things he does. Like that, you said, the second step. There's times where just like all of a sudden the offensive lineman's hands are like down at their hips because he's swiped him down so quick and he's made his move. And once he gets that closing speed, he's fine. I think if he can run 4.7 or better at the combine, you're going to feel a little bit better. I mean, I know 40 time isn't the only test, obviously. I mean, there's going to be plenty of others, but I've listened to a few people that are connected there with UCLA, and they actually think he's going to test better than people think. Now, again, I mean, these are people that are very maybe biased, I guess, in that way.
Connected.
But I do. I think he'd be a pretty solid pick. Like I said, I'm not sure that he's going to be he's going to become that next Hall of Famer for you, but he can be that real solid piece that you can start to build around and say, hey, these are one of our building blocks for moving forward.
Yeah. Good player. Seems like he's got a good head on his shoulder, and you don't become that savvy with your pass rushing moves unless you're a hard worker. So he obviously is dedicated to his craft, and that's something that can go a long way, not just relying on pure athleticism. And sometimes you have guys that are so freaky that even though they don't have moves, it's like, okay, I don't really care. We'll hope they figure it out. Myles Garrett was one of those guys. I mean, I'm just going to run around you every time. It worked. It worked for Myles Garrett. But some guys, much more refined. TJ Watt comes to mind, the hand stuff, the Bosas as well. So it does matter. And again, it gives them a really high floor as a pass rusher. Pearl Heater coming in saying, hi, good to see you, Pearl. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate you always checking in. Ernie May says, go Broncos country only. I see Jay Roper in the house as well. He says, I think the Broncos should take Spencer Milton as a lottery pick. If they're smart enough, I don't know. We'll see how they do down there in Mobile. Both those guys, interesting arm talents, but erratic for sure in their careers, putting it lightly. We got Joey saying, I'm still mad Buffalo lost. Yeah, Buffalo didn't deserve that game. The Chiefs whipped them up and down the field. I mean, did the Chiefs even punt in that game? I don't even think they did. I knew there was a graphic at one point. They had 0 punts. Oh, why would Josh Allen not get a single stop on defense? What a loser. We also got Jay saying, the arm talent, I don't see it with Knicks. I would want to draft Rattler and Milton both in 3rd and 4th round. I think there's potential lottery picks. Pratt's out there. We'll see what happens with Rattler and Milton down there at the Senior Bowl as well. As far as arm talent, I don't think Nix has a great arm, but I think it's a good enough package of tools where it's kind of like, an Andy Dalton-esque guy. And it's really the frame and the athleticism in the combination there with a good enough arm. Now, in terrible weather, is he going to look good? No, I don't think so. Out of the top 6 quarterbacks, him or Jaden Daniels probably have the worst arms out of the top 6 in terms of pure velocity and just RPMs on the ball. But Jaden Daniels has some unbelievable athleticism, the ability to take off there. And Nix is also a pretty darn good athlete as well in a compact frame, which I do appreciate. So
yeah,
they're all talented. They all could go top 6. And if it's really going to come down to intelligence and intangibles with some of those guys.
And I think as this process goes on, I think you and I might disagree on Nix a little bit. I think I'm going to have him higher than you are.
Okay. I like him, but I'm not in love.
I've went back and watched him a few times, and, I know, like, our friend Eric, he's one of those guys. He's very, tuned
Passionate.
in, and he's passionate. And if he doesn't like a guy, he's going to let you know, I really don't like this guy. So I kind of went into my first time watching with that idea of like, I'm not going to like this guy because Eric didn't like him. That's not a great way to go about that process, obviously. But there's some other things I went back and really watched for. I was pretty impressed with some of his work, especially pre-snap. I felt like of the top guys, other than Drake May, maybe, I felt like he did a better job of really being able to tell what the defense was coming at him with. Now, given he has more experience than all the others by a lot. And so, I mean, he should have some of that down more than the others. But I was pretty impressed at his ability to figure out, okay, this is where I need to go with the football. And now he makes a lot of first read throws. But I think part of that is because of his, like I said, his pre-snap work to set up knowing, hey, this is where the ball needs to go. And then, like you said, the Oregon offense makes things very difficult to fully understand, to get a full picture of what a quarterback is. And that's why I'm very interested this next week, what he can do down there at the Senior Bowl. I mean, that's going to be huge for him. It's just like that with Justin Herbert. Mm-hmm. A lot of people had big questions. He goes down there, does great at the Senior Bowl, answers a lot of those questions of how he can function in a more NFL style setup. And I think Bo Nix is going to be able to do a lot of the same things. I don't think that's going to be too big for him. So honestly, at this time, I might be closer to almost having him as quarterback 3, just because I think Jaden Daniels, there's some things there that really, they worry me with him. His size, because he's such a running quarterback. And then there's a lot of throws that are late that in college he could get away with. NFL, I'm not sure that's going to be the case. But what is a great case is Phil coming in again saying, is Fleming gone this year? And if so, is Paljewski ready? Do we draft for this position? I think if you find a guy that you love on the offensive line, you take him, especially at offensive tackle. Garrett Bowles, like I said, his contract, he's not going to be on this team at that contract for this upcoming season. Now, he still might be on the team, but they're going to have to figure out something with the contract. If he's gone, that left tackle becomes a huge position of need on this team. So again, if there's a left tackle that falls to you there at 12 that you love, I would not hesitate to take him. Even, I mean, right now, McGlinchey at right tackle, he was okay, but he's nothing spectacular at this time. And he's going to be another one of those big contracts as you move down here another couple years that you're going to be looking to replace. And so I definitely would not pass if an offensive tackle fell to you. Fleming, I doubt he's here next year. Just, again, some more cost control, trying to get younger, all those kind of things moving into this team.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think Paljewski is going to work himself into the swing tackle conversation and hopefully go from there. As far as offensive tackle goes in the draft, if there's a guy you like, take him. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Get the best 5 guys out there. Bulls could be gone this offseason, to be gone after that. McGlinchey's contract becomes much more palatable to move on from after 2024. And McGlinchey also played left tackle at Notre Dame. So for a year, if you had to plug your nose at left tackle because the best player available was a right tackle and you move McGlinchey left tackle and you have that rookie at right tackle, okay, we're getting it through a year. We can at least, be functional out there with that for a season. It's not like he has absolutely no experience there at that spot. So getting the best 5 out there and trying to continue to work on that. Certainly possible. And as far as the draft goes, again, back to Mel Kiper here as we're starting to wrap it on up. The Broncos end up taking Latu at 12. Here are the picks that go beforehand, just so we kind of have an idea of the board when the Broncos are on the clock, according to Mel Kiper's first mock. Caleb Williams going to the Bears at 1. No surprise there. Jaden Daniels at 2. Scott, what do you Carl, sorry. What do you have? Closer to quarterback 4. I don't know what's going on.
Well, like I said, he's going to have to have an offense really designed around him. Obviously, I mean, any quarterback is going to have that, but they're going to have to really mix in some run plays to make him feel comfortable. There's going to have to be certain routes that he's going to have to stay away from. I think especially the one that I saw the most trouble with was the comeback route. And that's such a staple in the NFL. There's just so many times, again, he was waiting for a guy to come out of his break before making the throw. Those are timing throws where you got to be thrown to a spot and hoping that your guy's going to be there at the right time.
Yeah.
And so those are the kind of things that I worry a little bit with him, that it's going to take a while to adjust, where the timing side of things isn't quite working there. It's more of I'm not sure if his great fit with Sean Payton for me. More so if he's going to a different kind of offense and offensive coordinator, he might be higher on my board than he is right now. I kind of always go into this of where would I rank them if I was the Denver Broncos? And I feel like Bo Nix is probably one of the better fits for Sean Payton. That's my main reason of kind of raising him up a little bit more. I don't think he has the highest ceiling of these players. Jaden Daniels has a much higher ceiling than Bo Nix.
Yeah.
But like I said, if I'm looking at what I think we can get, especially during the rookie contract, I think Bo Nix could maybe offer a little bit more.
Certainly possible. Keeping it moving here. Drake May with 3rd overall to the Patriots. Marvin Harrison 4th to the Cardinals. Brock Bowers, tight end to the Chargers there at 5. Malik Neighbors, wide receiver LSU to the Giants at 6. 7, you got Joe Alt, offensive tackle to Notre Dame to the Titans. 8, Falcons taking Dallas Turner, edge rusher from Alabama. 9, Chicago Bears taking Roma Dunze, wide receiver from Washington. 10, Jets take Olu Fashanu, offensive tackle from Penn State. 11, Minnesota Vikings take Nick Wiggins, cornerback Clemson. So there you have the Broncos available. Guys, after the board, or after the 12th pick come off, you got Terrion Arnold, cornerback, who both Daniel Jeremiah and Dane Brugler had going to the Broncos at 12, going to the Raiders there at 13. 14, you have the Saints taking the other LSU wide receiver who's supremely talented, Brian Thomas Jr. 15, the Colts going Keon Coleman. 16, the Seahawks going to the J.J. McCarthy, quarterback Michigan. 17, Jacksonville Jaguars going Cooper DeJean, defensive back from Iowa. 18, Bengals going J.C. Latham, offensive tackle from Alabama. Chargers at 19 taking Jared Verse, edge rusher from Florida State. And then 20, Pittsburgh Steelers taking Kamir Lassiter, cornerback from Georgia. Out of those names that stick out here, I'm going to be honest with you right now, and we got Patrick coming. Patrick, you're saving my life with all the coffee right now. I really would not even be here without you. So appreciate all the Lion Coffee stuff and the gifts that you've sent. But as far as how the board falls here, Carl, the guys who stand out to me are Terrion Arnold and Cooper DeJean. I don't want to take a cornerback. I don't want to take a defensive back, but both really good guys that at the end of the day, just draft the best players on your board and hopefully it'll work out. I like Jared Verse more than I like Latu. Right now, I got to be honest. Right now, I like the power, Rock'em Sock'em robot hands that he has in comparison to Latu. Just much more of a power player. And I also really like the idea of another offensive lineman, specifically Talise Fuaga, offensive tackle from Oregon State, who wasn't even listed here. I'll be curious to see what happens with him. And J.C. Latham. Both guys are pretty massive run blockers, offensive linemen. And, of course, J.J. McCarthy, the wild card there as well. But no Bo Nix. J.J. McCarthy comes off the board. What do you think? Would you have gone with Latu in this situation as well? Or what do you think?
I mean, you listed one of those names, Fuaga. He fell to 22 to the Eagles. Man, the Eagles, how do they always get players? I mean, obviously this isn't the real draft, so maybe that doesn't happen. He would be one that would be hard to pass on. As much as I love Bowles, his up and down career is sometimes tough to hold on to, especially seems like when it is a contract year where he knows, like, if I don't have a good year, I'm getting cut. Mm-hmm. It always seems like all of a sudden he plays great. And I'm not trying to say, obviously that's going to be a motivator for anybody out there. When your back is against the wall, you're going to have to perform at a different level. But I still wouldn't mind replacing him because his contract's just out of control for what he brings to the field. And so I'm willing to move in that kind of direction. Like you said, Verse is another one that I'd be torn on because I have Turner as my number one edge rusher. Verse would be up there as well. Like I said, those heavy hands, especially then helping in the run game. I think he could be huge for the Broncos day one, something that they absolutely need.
Yeah.
And lots of, I mean, again, I wouldn't have a problem with the pick. I wouldn't say that this is a home run. I'd call it a double, a pretty safe double, depending on the medicals. That's always going to be the big thing for him. And then, like I said, Terrion Arnold, DeJean Cooper, some other good names out there that could really turn into something great for you, give you a great secondary. It's just hard if you don't have a pass rush to really take advantage of that kind of talent. It's hard to really want to go get that talent. I get take talent just because you need talent, but it's just kind of hard where you're going to be maybe taking a couple years before you fully see what you could have in that secondary.
I'm with you 100%. I do like Verse more. I think he's kind of a lunch pail guy. He can rush while setting the edge as well. So if you need to get home with 4 and be able to rush with 4 on first and second down while still having the integrity of your run lanes, I think Verse would be a good get there. And that's something the Broncos, let's just be honest, they sucked at that this season. They were horrible in terms of being able to rush the 4 while still having integrity in run defense. One of the worst versions of the Broncos doing that I can remember. But the way it played out, ideally for me, Carl, I think I would take probably Verse in this situation. I want to see the testing with edge rushers and the medicals with Latu and everything. My top 10 guys are all gone by pick 12. I'm hoping to trade back. I really am. And you mentioned all these guys here in picks 18 through 26. Giddy up. Give me a pick in that range. Let me take the best edge rusher, offensive tackle, defensive tackle available there, maybe even a center, and a JPJ from Oregon who's really good. Really good. I think I'd be looking that round, get a little bit more value in that run. Maybe you're looking at edge rusher down there as well. You got Braswell from Alabama, Chop Robinson from Penn State. But Latu, solid pick. I wouldn't be upset about it. I would worry about the medicals, but Denver needs to get so much better in a lot of areas. They're using a position of value there, getting cheap at a very expensive position, the second most expensive position in football. So I don't hate it. Want to see how the medicals work out. And I want to see the testing for both the edge rushers and obviously the defensive tackles as well.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And Kiper, I was going to ask you this. Of all the big draft guys out there, who's your favorite and why?
It's Dane Brugler, just because I think he's always willing to talk with you about it as well. You know, he doesn't big time. Yeah, I remember him 10 years ago when he was coming up and like, oh man, this guy does a lot of good work. And now he's putting out the beast, which is there's no piece of draft information out there that is better. And other than what the teams have built and whatnot, of course, but his might be even better still because he has to do it for all these different guys for across schemes. So he's great. I do really respect Mel Kiper though. I think that he puts in the work, he has connections, and he's not afraid to put his neck out there. You know, he's not just towing the line where he's like, oh, the echo chamber here. I'm just going to say this now that he's popular. No, he's going to put it out there and he'll walk things back. I know I listened to a lot of Mel Kiper as well. And a few weeks ago, he said that he's not all in on Terrion Arnold at cornerback. Too grabby. You're going to get some penalties down the field. You can't have that in the NFL on third downs. It's a little less detrimental in college than it is in the NFL. And he walked that back recently, saying, you know, I talked to some people in the league. You know, he's only 20 years old, redshirt sophomore, and he's still working on the technique. But all the footwork and stuff is there. And the people that I respect, I went back and talked with them, went over some tape with them, and had to walk that back a little bit. I think I was wrong there. So appreciate people who are not, you know, this is my first opinion. I'm going to dig in. You're wrong. I'm right. So Mel's good. Mel's one of the good ones.
No, I agree. And like I said, I mean, he's really paved the way for so many others to actually get into this field and make a career even out of just looking at the draft. And so love that. And he does put out some weird takes every once in a while. I'm trying to remember which quarterback it was that he like just put the stamp on, this is my guy. And if he doesn't turn into it, I'm retiring kind of thing. I'm trying to remember who that was, but so some of those kind of things, it's just part of the personality. And obviously when you're on TV like that, you sometimes say things like that, but for the most part, like you said, he's one of the more plugged in people. So if he says something, it's worth listening to. And with Terrion Arnold, I mean, yeah, it is. It's good to remember. I think this guy just switched to cornerback here in like the last 2 years, hadn't played it before. And all of a sudden they're just like, hey, we think you're athletic enough. We think we can coach you up good enough. And so he's just scratching the surface of what he could be as a cornerback. So those kind of like those little things matter. Like you said, talking to the coaches and saying, hey, we see it. We see these little things. We know we can coach up the rest of this.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Well, guys, gonna have to wrap it up. I got to get it back on baby duty here, but appreciate everyone coming in. It'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully, the Broncos can find a way to get a little bit more draft capital, especially in the top 100. But we'll see. Right now, they only got one in the top 75, and damn, they better well make it work after kind of being a little bit maybe overzealous with the past few draft classes. Russell Wilson stuff, Sean Payton, Riley Moss trade as well. It'd be nice to have another third round pick this year, but what can you do? Appreciate everyone coming in. Make sure you're following Carl and I on Twitter. Carl is at Carl Dumler MHH. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at Mile High Huddle. If you're on Facebook, make sure you're joining us at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says here underneath, please subscribe to our show, Building the Broncos and all the Mile High Huddle shows, and share on your social media platforms. Carl, any final words before we wrap it on up here?
No, I would encourage everyone to remember, if Broncos don't take quarterback at 12, that's not the end of the world. This is still going to be a process for the Broncos. I know there's some people out there that are like, quarterback or nothing. Don't go into that kind of circle because there's plenty of other players that are talented. Scott and I were just talking before the show, the 2011 draft. That's the Von Miller draft. There were 3 busts in the top 10. All 3 of them were quarterbacks. Of the top 16, there was only one player that was a non-quarterback that you would say was maybe a little bit of a bust, Nick Fairley. And he still had a decent career. It wasn't like outstanding when you're talking like a J.J. Watt, a Von Miller.
Aaron Smith, Julio Jones.
Right. You
Patrick
think of some
Peterson.
of those other guys that are going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Marcel Darius was a little bit of a bust. At 3 overall in that class?
I guess for where he was taken. He was still a talented player, still started for a lot of years in the league, but you think of the quarterbacks like Jake Locker, Blaine Gabbert, Christian Ponder. Those were 3 quarterbacks that are taken in the top 11 of that draft. And so don't get into this, we have to take a quarterback just because we need a quarterback kind of mindset that gets you in trouble.
You have to line it up, right? That's one reason I think we were so gung-ho in 2021 is that it did line up. I don't know about the roster now, but we'll find out. Hopefully everyone has a great rest of your week. We appreciate you. Draft season in full swing. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. And as always, go Broncos.